Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritually Boujee Astrology, and we are going to take a look at the most peculiar Mercury retrograde that we have seen in over a decade. That's not even a joke, and I have reasons why, but before I get into that, I have announcements to make. And these announcements are going to be a little bit bigger, and you guys are going to think I'm a little bit crazy until I start to break down the Mercury retrograde, but here we go. The goal is that this Mercury retrograde video will be the first episode that goes onto new platforms, going on to Apple Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, a couple other platforms. Those are the two that are coming to memory right now. Those are the big ones. The goal is to start launching this across more platforms for more people to be able to start to listen in. I have been on YouTube and Spotify since the beginning, but one of the things that came to me over the last few weeks is like, this was one extra thing that I needed to grow and do as I start launching more things throughout the rest of the year, because there will be some more things that start to launch throughout the rest of the year. Yes, through the Mercury retrograde, and yes, through the Mars retrograde. It's time. That's what the energy says. I'm doing what I'm told to do from the universe. Anyways, moving along. Quick little reminder for everybody that my sessions are discounted all the way until the end of the year. Everybody's getting new client pricing. What does that mean? Whenever you come to me for a session, it doesn't matter what we start to look at. We can look at your personal stuff. We can look at your health. We can look at your finances. We look at career. We can look at relationship. We can look at family. We can look at karma. We can look at what's going on with your kids. It doesn't really matter to me. I'd put a full approach as to what's necessary for you so you have a more centered idea of what's important for you versus just going over aspects of a natal chart. We can do that too, but I go over a lot more. And whenever you do your first session with me, I do that at a discounted rate because I want you to feel comfortable with the time that you're spending with me. So everybody's getting new client pricing until the end of the year. An hour-long session with me is $35. A 90-minute session with me is $50. Make sure you get your bookings done for those prices, because as I continue to launch things going into the end of the year, there will be adjustments. There will be changes that start to take place in 2025. So take advantage of that special while you can. Trust me on this. And gift certificates are available for people that want to gift readings. All right, moving along, getting out of that mentality. Now, the reason I say this is one of the most peculiar Mercury retrogrades is because of the dynamics of Jupiter. Since Jupiter moved into Gemini, one of the things that have been very clear in my meditation is that having an outer planet in a mercurial sign is tying the Mercury retrogrades together. That sounded really hinky, but then I thought back to it. We haven't had an outer planet in a mercurial sign since the last half of 2015 and the first part of 2016. And that was the last time Jupiter was in not Gemini, Virgo. Wrong mercurial. The Jupiter was in Virgo. And when I think back to what was going on in my life, I wasn't doing this as a profession yet, but I do remember that timeline. I'm like, oh, no, that totally makes sense. That was a hellacious year. Yeah. We had it then too. We're having it again now, but it also shows us a lesson. It shows us something that we can start to prepare for when Uranus goes into Gemini, because that starts next year. But we're not going to talk about next year, and we're definitely not going to talk about 2015, 2016. We're going to be staying focused on what we've been dealing with so far and what it is going to be doing in the energy around us. So let's focus on that. Each Mercury retrograde, since Jupiter has went into Gemini, is tied together. I felt this in the last one. It sounded really hinky in my head. But as we've gotten more into this one, it's showing more and more and more that, yeah, the decisions we made in the last one is impacting this one. The decisions that we make in this Mercury retrograde will impact the next one in the springtime, whenever we have that one that's going to happen between Aries and Pisces in March and April. And there's a lot of other stuff about March and April. That's just one of them. I'm not going to focus on that too much either. But what's interesting about this one is the element of mutual reception. And the way I feel about this particular Mercury retrograde is a lot of the stuff that we've already been dealing with for a while is a part of the reshaping, restructuring, refocusing, reimagining, redoing elements, because we cover all of the re's when it comes to a Mercury retrograde. But for this one in particular, there is support, there is a focus, or there is a judgment. And this really is going to come down to personal karma as to what I say next. Because I feel like as we go through this Mercury retrograde, and remember in the middle of this Mercury retrograde, Mars turns retrograde. So there's a big element that amplifies even more of the changes that we're about to go through over the next few weeks. There is this element of mutual reception. I'm going to take everybody back to school for just a minute. Whenever Jupiter goes into Gemini, which he's been there for a while now, he's in his detriment. So putting that in math, going back to school, like I said, math aspect, negative Jupiter. But since the beginning of the month, Mercury's been in Sagittarius. Mercury is in its detriment, negative Mercury. But these two are in mutual reception. They are in each other's houses. They understand one another. They know what the other side is working with. They know what the other side and how they're going to behave. They know the decisions. They know the lessons. They know stuff. Mutual reception. Plus sign. Plus sign. If you go back to school and you think to mathematics, a double negative equals positive. Therefore, the structural revamping, reshaping, changing in a lot of ways, there's hidden benefits to this Mercury retrograde. And by the way, it still blows my mind to say that, but it's true. I have felt it the entire time working up to it. I waited to do this Mercury retrograde video because I wanted to continue to see the elements, but it's still there. It's still saying it. Double negative for many people is going to equal a positive. However, not everybody is in a mentality of sunshine and rainbows. Not everybody is living in alignment. Not everybody deserves a pat on the back. I got your back. I can support you. I can help you. It's going to be good. It's going to be great. Not everybody has that type of vibration. Therefore, you scratch the idea of mathematics for just a minute and we look at the concept of a double whammy. Because again, in the middle of this Mercury retrograde, Mars is going to go retrograde. And people that have been abusing power, Mars in Leo, that are no longer going to be in power, are going to lose based off of the reshaping, the refocus, the restructuring, the reimagining, the whatever the re is. People will lose. For some people, the rest of this year is either going to be a double negative equals positive, or it's going to be double whammies. Now, let's look at the idea of double negative. There's a multitude of ways that mercurial things can come through. Mercury can be travel. Mercury can be communications. Mercury can have to do with technology. Mercury can have to do with children. It can have to do with pets. It can have to do with a lot of things. And the one thing about Mercury in Sagittarius can be is hot-headed, overconfident, running their mouth all the time, putting their foot in their mouth, saying shit that overloads their ass. But one of the things I've talked about in the weekly podcast has been we can overpromise just to underdeliver. And as we get closer to Mercury turning retrograde, there's going to be frantic behavior in a lot of ways, shaking up behavior as to what needs to change, what needs to happen to try to turn something around, to overcome something. But given the element of Jupiter, it's like we have guidance. There is support. There's help in that vibration. There's help in this energy. There can be. Not everybody's in a place of help. And if we're not getting help, that element of Jupiter, then we're getting lessons, teaching, lessons. And given how the transits will lay out and how Saturn plays into the mix too, and I haven't had a reason to talk about that yet, there are going to be harsh realities whenever it comes to roles, responsibilities, and authorities in regards to the end of the year. End of the year. Post retrograde, when Mercury is in his post shadow phase, but it's there. It's very much there. Now, whenever it comes to medical astrology, and I want to tie this in for sure, the key area that I have been picking up on that people were going to have issues is either going to be things tied to chest. Mercury rules anything on your body that you have in duality, but sometimes he's not the only ruler of that. Sometimes he's a co-ruler. So, for example, the lungs are actually ruled by Venus, but you got two of them. So he has co-rulership. And there can be a delay in Mercury retrogrades that has to do with things not going well with the things that Mercury rules on the body. So, again, anything in duality, two eyes, two hands, two arms, two legs, two lungs, two kidneys, anything that you have duality on can have a negative impact. So let's be clear about that one, because it is going to be Mercury going retrograde in his detriment. Now, there's a lot of your intestines that are ruled by Mercury, but adding a layer to that, Jupiter rules the feet. You got 2 feet. So there can be people that can quite literally be starting to have issues from their feet up. Their plantar fasciitis, it's messing with them, and they can't flex their foot the same way, and they try to flex their foot the same way, or they step wrong, and it's going to happen. Not to everybody. I'm not wishing bad things. I'm being realistic, but it's going to happen. The other elements of that can have to do with the liver, because Jupiter has rulership of the liver. It can have to do with the spleen. It can have to do with the gallbladder. But I can see a lot of people having very big digestive issues, putting it lightly, but they can also have something tied to their internal organs that has a very negative impact through this Mercury retrograde. Now, that's all sounding very negative, but now I'm going to put into play the idea of the mutual reception. And I just want to give the idea of an example. I'm not wishing negative on anybody. I'm not trying to manifest this, but let's be clear. You're having an issue with your digestive tract. Your stomach's been bugging you since the beginning of the month. It's like, I don't know, it's like something's kicking inside of me. I got a food baby. It shouldn't hurt this much. You go to the doctor, you do the scan. Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. You go to the doctor, you do the scan. And it's like, well, I can see where you're having indigestion. You can change 1 or 2 things on your diet, but because we just did this scan, I can see something else is wrong. But it's like seeing something before it becomes a bigger problem. And this one situation has the ability to uncover another situation before it becomes that issue, before it becomes a bigger thing, before it takes you out or takes you down. And it turns into a happy accident situation. And I can see how that can be a big part of the manifestations. Happy accidents. Now, not everybody's not going to be dealing with this in the health sense, but I won't ignore the health sense. And this can come through in other ways. You're having to travel all over the place, and you've been doing that for work, and then something happens, you're stuck by the side of the road, but then you run into somebody that can not only help you fix your car, but they can turn into your client, or they can connect you with other people. They have the ability to help more beyond the initial scope. Wasn't the plan. It's almost like divine timing. And that could be a big part of the upcoming vibration. A double negative equals a positive. Happy accidents. And these things can align us over the course of the rest of the year. And I know for some people that kind of sounds like an odd little hallmark moment, but it's true. There's a lot of truth behind it. And you can see situations that play into this category one after another after another. You go ask for help financially. And not only do you get the help that you need, but you find out you're eligible for something else. You get an extra layer, you get another uptick. There's more benefit coming through than what you initially imagined. Double negative equals positive. And I do feel like this one, I would not normally say this, and I feel weird saying it, but it is true. I've watched the patterns, I've watched how everything has continued, and it keeps showing me just this type of way. Will we still have the elements of frustration and miscommunication and misinformation? Of course, it's a Mercury retrograde. But that misinformation, that bad directions can still line you up with something that you haven't imagined yet. Happy accidents. Now, this is going off of the mindset that everybody is being truthful and honest and helpful, and they're being healthy people and doing the right thing for everybody, and sunshine and rainbows, and wouldn't that be amazing? But the reality is people suck sometimes. That's the truth. And for those that are listening for the first time, I'm a real person. And I say real things. Let's do this. You overpromise something. Oh, I can make that order. I can make those cupcakes. I can do that order. I can make it happen. I can do all these things. But you don't have a clue where to start. And every person you end up reaching out to doesn't end up working in your favor. And by the time we get to either the end of the retrograde, but more likely the end of the year, we're having to go back to investors, go back to the doctor, go back to the teacher, go back to an authority figure, somebody that we deem as an authority figure. Doesn't always have to be our authority figure, doesn't always have to be the police, but we end up having to round back to somebody, letting them know we didn't get something accomplished. We didn't make something happen. We couldn't make it happen. Things did not go to plan because too many other things started to pop up that became a distraction, because too many things went wrong and you weren't able to make it happen. And there will be elements that tie to that as well. For some people, double negative will equal positive, but for other people, it will be a double whammy. Some people will overpromise in situations. They're going to have all the confidence in the world right before Mercury goes retrograde. But then all of the lies, all of the con, all of the fraud, all of the deception, one after another, after another, after another, after another, after another, starts to pop up. And it shows another person, another side of the people that were not being honest. And they will experience the double whammy, the bigger elements of the negative karma. And I have been very clear each week. Make sure you're being clear on your words, set realistic goals. Do not overpromise just to underdeliver. It's not going to work in your favor. Be more realistic because of that element. And some of y'all have listened, and some of y'all have not. But I want to remind everybody of the 3 rules. The 3 rules that I said at the beginning of October. I recap them in the weekly podcast going into this week. I'm recording this on November 21st, just to be clear. And I want to recap them again here now. Some of the things that we started at the beginning of the year were meant to stick. They were meant to stick. And as we go through these next few weeks, I'm actually saying rule 2 before rule 1, so let's be clear about that. We're going to have structured, pivotal shifts to test the tenacity of what has stuck. But for other people, things that we started at the beginning of the year, this is now rule number 1 that I'm saying as rule number 2. So I apologize. I flipped them in my head just now. Some of the things that we started at the beginning of the year were not meant to stick. And we've had little vibrations showing us this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And now, as we go into this Mercury retrograde, combined with the center of this Mercury retrograde having Mars go retrograde, because there's elements that are tying these two together, and it will make sense as I do the transit breakdown here in a little bit. Oh, some of those things that were not meant to stick have pushed us into a vibration of scrambling for an alternative. We thought we had one business partner. We thought we had this deal. We thought we had this funding. We thought we had this finance. We thought we had this situation, this relationship. We thought we had it figured out. And now we know that we don't. So much of this energy has us looking for something or someone that could potentially step in and save the situation, make everything better, make us feel whole again. And for some people, there could be a possibility of that. But for more people, the person that can come through can be a destructive test, chaotic testing, pivotal testing, pressured testing. And if we're still trying to make something continue to work that is not meant to work, the next few months are going to be a nightmare. I'm being as clear with that as I can possibly be because of what we're getting into next. If you have struggled through September and October with your emotions and being able to control your emotions, when we get into next year, specifically between January and mid-April, there will be harder things to deal with whenever it comes to emotions. If you have had certain things fall apart and you're trying to make something happen again, you're pushing for something that's no longer meant for you. And I don't need individual charts to say that. I can read this energy. We can still be pushing for something that is no longer meant for us. And the difference on understanding how to know that is how we feel. Are we scrambling and anxious in this energy, trying to make something happen, trying to figure something out, beating our head against the wall, spinning and ADHD mindset and circles and anxiety of just, well, how do I do it? What do I? You're doing something that you're not meant to do. Now, that's going to be easy for some people. That's going to be harder for others to hear. And as we go through these next few months, very much starting in this Mercury retrograde, we will see the ripple effect of the misdecisions and miscommunications that will put us into a very new vibration come next spring. One of the things I said at the beginning of November was that we are in an obstacle course, but each part of the obstacle course feels different depending on the timeline that we're talking about. November and December feel like one part of the obstacle course. January and February feel like another part of an obstacle course. And the last week of February going to March and the first 3 weeks of April, 2-3 weeks of April, rounding it out, feel like a very different part. I know they are all connected. I've seen the pattern. I've seen the vibration. I've seen the transits that connect them all. But the reason I call it an obstacle course is because there is more than one kind of race. And some of us were at the beginning of November. Literally, I said, It's like you get to pick your challenge. You get to pick your obstacle course. Are you going to go the easy route, intermediate, or balls to the wall hard? Which way are we going? Some of y'all went balls to the wall. Some of y'all are trying to play it safe. Some of y'all went into it in a blindfold. Let's be clear about that. And you don't even know what you chose. But as we continue, it's going to start to make sense. Some of us are going to breeze through the monkey bars. Some of us are going to be going on the monkey bars and being hit with paintballs. Because again, the levels are different. Now, in the middle of this Mercury retrograde, Mars is going to go retrograde. And there is a specific transit that happened in the middle of the last Mercury retrograde that really comes back around. And that is going to happen right in the beginning of the Mars retrograde. So just to be clear, Mars goes retrograde on December 6th. So we've still got a few weeks before this is happening, but Mars is stationing during the start of this Mercury retrograde. And there will be frustrations, there will be stewing, there will be kicking at people who aren't recognizing me as an individual, people's egos coming through in certain ways. Acknowledge me, you got to see me. I need to do this a certain way. Why aren't you helping me? And the very beginning of whenever Mars goes retrograde, there's so many Mercurial transits that are happening. There's a Plutonian transit that is happening. But not only that, we are going to be in our exact oppositions to Jupiter at the point in the sky where Mars and Jupiter had their conjunction back then, back in August. If you listened to me back then, I said there is something about this date. It was the middle of August between, well, I'm going to do a timeline of dates, not just one particular date, between August 14th and August 20th. That was when it was the most hyperized. And that was in the middle of a Mercury retrograde. That was the full moon in Aquarius. That was Mars conjunct Jupiter, squaring Saturn. There's a lot of things going on during that week, but I said it back then. There is stuff about this date, this energy, that is going to come back through when Mars turns retrograde during the next Mercury retrograde. We're in that now. So it's easier to tell somebody to go backwards and look at what was going on in August. Think about what was going on in August. We all kind of know it ain't that far away. What was some of the things that went different, that happened, that was connected in August? Because they're coming back to the surface. They're coming back to light. They're coming back into the fold. And for some people, there was very big, drastic changes in regards to, again, recognition and people in power. There was dynamic changes in how we communicated and our plans and the logistics. There was a lot of things that it's like we did a very rampant, rapid, I got to do this now situation. And we're still dealing with the ripple effect from it. And whatever we did in August, July, August, I'm putting a full blown in there because July is whenever Jupiter entered shadow, and July is whenever we had the Mars Uranus conjunction. And a lot of whatever happened in that time frame led to the stuff in August. So knowing that area of time and what was going on this summer is directly impacting what we are about to do next. Anything and everything that we are doing now is also then going to impact the next Mercury retrograde that is going to happen between March and April of next year. That will be combined with a Venus retrograde. That will be combined with eclipse season. We're in a dynamic of what feels like a course correction for a lot of people, rapid shifts, rapid changes, necessary changes that will not be easily undone. We've got a reflection of where our unfinished business was. We have removed certain things and certain people from the categories that no longer serve where we're going next. And now we're going into a vibration that, for, again, many people, it is either going to be a double negative equals positive or a double whammy. And it's really going to come down to how in alignment we have been in the energy and how in alignment we are going to be moving forward. Most of us like to believe, oh, yeah, I've got everything under control. Everything's going to be great. I don't have any karma. I've done everything really, really well. We'll see. We'll see. Because the universe got jokes. We about to go into some jokes. And it ain't going to be funny to everybody. It's going to be kind of crazy. And I'm making people aware of that. Now, again, this is going to be that first episode that's going on multiple platforms. So I'm going to give a little bit more information as to like how I do this. Now, I would normally do a Mercury retrograde video right when Mercury entered shadow. I'm not doing that this time. I'm doing this right before Mercury turns retrograde, but I am going to start the transits on the screen here in a minute from that point of shadow. I take it from the point of shadow all the way to retrograde, all the way through the retrograde, and all the way through the post shadow. And I'm going to remind everybody that when Mars and Mercury changed signs, they basically did it together. Mars went into Leo and Mercury went into Sagittarius simultaneously. When we finally get to the first full week of January, the first full 10 days, I should say it that way, that is when Mars is going to leave Leo, and that is when Mercury is going to leave Capricorn. The tie between Mars in Leo and Mercury in Sagittarius is very clear. It is very dominant. We cannot ignore it. They are feeding into one another. They speak to one another. And again, given where Jupiter will be when Mars turns retrograde, in the middle of the Mercury retrograde, layer, astro. Where Jupiter will be is exactly where he was when we had the Mars Jupiter conjunction during the last Mercury retrograde in August of 2024. Continuous flow, continuous vibration, course correction, but this course is an obstacle course. It ain't easy. All right, let's get started. Let's get into this. Let's get into the transits, and we are going to start on November 7th. Now, why am I starting on November 7th? Because that's quite literally when Mercury entered shadow. So I got this roughly at 9:30 in the morning. It's not specific to the time. It's more along the lines of like, look where Mercury is. Venus was going into its first square with Neptune. We were getting closer to the last conjunction between the moon and Pluto. You can see this right here. And we're still very much in the vibration of the Pluto-Mars opposition. Now, this actually was exact on November 4th, but by degree, they are still in their opposition as Mercury enters shadow. So that tells me everything about the first full week. So we can really say November 1st. So anything since the beginning of the month is playing an effect in some way. It's playing its hand. It's had an imprint in the energy. Now, the actual day of Mercury enter shadow, there was not a whole lot going on. In fact, we didn't have our first big transit, air quotations on big, because we had lots of lunar stuff in the middle of that. The first big transit that we had was the square between Venus and Neptune. And there was a hopefulness in that energy. There was a boastfulness in that energy. There could have been confusion because there was Neptune. There could have been a lot of nostalgia, again, having to deal with some of the stuff from the past. But there was an element here with the Venus-Neptune square of not seeing things clearly, not necessarily seeing eye to eye, still dealing with the ripple effect of the tensions that have already come through with the Mars-Pluto opposition, and then trying to see where the benefit would be to make a change, to do something different, to shift responsibilities, to go in a different direction, to make a change. And this change was not necessarily dominant in this vibration. For a lot more people, that change came through in the following week after Venus went into Capricorn. And that, of course, happened on November 11th. Sorry, I had a hiccup. Not this early. It was later in the afternoon. There we go. I got this now at 1:30. So there it is, November 11th. During this week, from November 11th to November 15th, we had a lot of things going on. Venus went into Capricorn. We were moving towards a full moon in Taurus, and we had Saturn stationing to go direct while hosting Venus. The best decision to make would be to remove one person from power, to no longer have one person in control of something, taking responsibility for something, and moving towards somebody else being in that position, somebody else being in charge, somebody else stepping up in the situations, doing things a little bit differently. That is a big part of where the vibration had been. And you can kind of see that here. So again, Venus entered Capricorn, 1226 on November 11th. That was also tied into the first square between Mercury and Saturn, the first of three. Now, let's be clear about this. When I say the first of three, usually you can see a pattern from the first one, the second, and the third. Now, in the first one, Mercury was direct, pushing an idea onto Saturn, who was stationing, telling somebody's like, you have to turn this around. You have to make a change. You have to step up. You have to step out. The thing about Saturn and Pisces is that this is a shift in responsibility. People that had once been in control, who had once been in power, are no longer meant to be in power. The ones that used to be our elders taking care of the entire family, they're no longer the ones taking care. And a lot of times our elders are the ones that are needing taken care of now. And we see the elements and rounds of that while Saturn is going through Pisces. And this isn't going to end until the first round, 2025, summertime. I'm just saying summertime loosely, but it won't end completely until February of 2026, because Saturn will retrograde back into Pisces at the last half. This time next year, Saturn will be back in Pisces. So there are levels, rounds, and the shifts in responsibility, in authority figures with our elders. That first Mercury Saturn square, it went exact on November 12th, but it is going to correlate to December 6th, which is the day Mars turns retrograde, and December 26th. And as we continue, you will see why I'm saying that. But I'm letting people know when I'm saying the first of something, because again, new platforms and everything else, when I'm saying the first of something, the first in a series, take note of what was going on around that time. Take note of what was going down, what was promised, what was delivered, what was signed off on. Take note of that, because it's got levels. Okay. Now again, the exact square happened on November the 12th. It was actually a little bit earlier in the daytime. You can see, though, right there is like right around 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then, of course, by the end of the week, we had the full moon in Taurus, conjunct Uranus, and this was the day that Saturn turned direct. Saturn was hosting Venus. Venus was the host of the full moon. These three were all speaking to one another. And then there was also that Uranian effect of like, expect the unexpected, unexpected responsibility change, unexpected shakeups with elders, unexpected parts of the vibration. And whatever happened from the 15th also played an impact to November 19th. Just to be clear, but we had other transits that happened in the middle of that. On the very next day, on the 16th, that is when we had our full opposition between the sun and Uranus. And what I said all of that weekend after the full moon, and for those that don't remember, the full moon in Taurus was also like the Tyson Jake Paul fight. So there was a lot of like buzzing and communication, and everybody seemed to have an opinion. That was exactly what I said would happen in the weekly podcast of like, something happens in that full moon and then it leaves our minds reeling. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's communicating it. Now, I didn't say that specific to the Jake Paul Tyson fight, but I said that in the layman's terms of like, there's going to be things that happen in your personal life that you can't stop talking about, that you're going to keep working, that you're going to be thinking about. It's going to be on your mind the entire time. Like that is part of the vibration. And that set up part of the weekend. And again, expect the unexpected weekend that we had then. On November 18th, we had our first opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. This actually happened in the overnight hours. So for some people, this played into a late effect of November 17th, but for more people, it was a part of the 18th. And we had a certain type of meeting with another person, with the doctor, with the guru, with the teacher. We had something about our health. If you were already having issues with your tummy, going back to the medical astrology, if you've been having issues with your breathing, bronchitis, pneumonia, hopefully not the COVID, flu, anything along those lines, it's like, I need to go to the doctor, or you did go to a doctor right around this time. Some of you had to deal with the teacher, something going on with your kids, them acting out. So you had to have a conversation with the teacher as to what needed to change, or you're hearing about their behavior and it triggered, we need to make a change, or you're letting the teacher know we've had so many adjustments going on that they're just not coping very well. It's not on purpose, but kids don't know how to react to rapid change besides just acting out. So there could have been things tied to children around this time, depending on what you're dealing with in your personal life or other people. This could have to do with money. Mercury rules mercantile like things, merchant. Jupiter is abundance and wealth. So for a lot of people, this Mercury Jupiter had a lot to do with financial things. Okay. Now, the thing about Mercury Jupiter is this was the first in the series of three. So I'm saying that again. Whatever happened on November 18th directly impacts the energy around December 4th and December 27th. There is multiple impacts, multiple rounds, multiple layers. So you could have been promised something at one point, but there could have been a hesitancy there, or there could have been, a need for aid at that time that's one side didn't accept or one side kind of rejected. And we tried to move forward in a different way. But again, we got stuck because Mercury started to station. Okay. Oh, now the other thing that was going on the 18th is we had the Sun Neptune trine. That also plays into a part of the effect of like not seeing things clearly, over promising and under deliver. But we could also been like letting people know an emotional stance of things. Like, this is what's been going on behind the scenes. This is where they've lied to you. This is where the fraud has been. And this is how it's impacting us. Given all that financial elements, there could have been elements towards like the fallacy, what was not real, what was not true. So making that part very, very clear. And then, of course, November 19th, Pluto re-entered Aquarius. Where are we at? A couple hours before that happened. So there we go. Got this now at 4:30 on November 19th. And here we go. Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. Pluto reactivating now by sign. The opposition to Mars. The first opposition is just kind of in that continuous flow. And now it's had a bigger impact on people, on masses, on society, understanding the elements of a power struggle and a power dynamic while Pluto goes into Aquarius. And again, this is setting the stage for a new 20-year cycle, a Pluto and Aquarius 20-year cycle. And it's a part of our Mercury retrograde change. Yeah. Okay, moving along. On November 21st, we get to, this is today, by the way, the day that I'm recording it, the sun entering Sagittarius and making a sextile to Pluto. Not only are we making people aware of things, I'm going to use the podcast for an example, but we are seeing the benefit, seeing the hopeful sides, seeing how something can be accomplished when the sun hits the sextile to Pluto. Using again the example of the podcast, like right as Pluto was going into Aquarius is when I started doing all of the signups to do the different platforms. And now today on the 21st, when I'm recording this episode, the sun will make the sextile to Pluto. And it's like me recognizing like, hey, this is where we're going to change something. And this is how I'm going to change more connections with people. Yeah. Okay, moving along. It does not have to be heavy. And the only other direct transit, and this one is also not heavy, that happens before Mercury turns retrograde is on the 22nd. And that is whenever Venus goes through her sextile with Saturn. The only reason I bring up the Venus-Saturn sextile is because we're rounding out of the full moon that had happened in Taurus, which of course is Venus' sign. The day of that full moon, Saturn turned retrograde, and Saturn was hosting Venus during that full moon. So again, there were ties to roles, responsibilities, the authority, who's going to be taking care of what, who's taking care of grandma, who's taking care of grandpa, who's going to be doing what. Do we have to bring in additional help? Do we need to hire? Who do we need to delegate to? There's things regarding levels of responsibility, knowing that we have to make a official change very, very quickly. And that takes us into the start of the Mercury retrograde. Now, on November 25th at 8:43 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to move this to 9:30 because that's close enough. And Mercury is retrograde. When Mercury turns retrograde, there is no direct transit with the bigger outer planets, but what there is a moon south node conjunction. So again, new platform. I'm going to be explaining a little bit more this time for certain people. In Vedic astrology, the south node is the body without a head. The north node is the head of the dragon. The south node is the body. With the moon making a conjunction to the south node, while Mercury is turning retrograde, I got to say this very sarcastically, some people will immediately feel an impact to the body. And that's why I put emphasis in the beginning on the medical astrology. Something that's impacting the lungs, something that's impacting the elder, something that's impacting this digestive system. Thinking of the things that what Mercury rules on the body. Now, Mercury is turning retrograde in Jupiter's sign. They're in mutual reception. Again, it could either be double positive or double whammy, or double negative equals positive. There could be something that puts us more into the forefront of having to deal with doctors, dealing with more around teachers, leaders, faith leaders, people that give spiritual support. When I say guru, people that can teach you something in the moment. There can also be a massive financial change that for some people with moon south node could be karmic or loss. Because the thing about the south node is it was the body that was released, purged, removed, let go of, outgrown. The reason the dragon was separated from its body is because he wanted to eat everything in the room and never get fat. That's my way to describe it. That's not the Vedic way to describe it, but it's the same concept. He wanted to eat all the universes. He wanted to control all of the universes. He was Thanos. But the problem was the belly got full. The belly got full. Intestines. There can be things tied to the body just as much as we can see something that we need to let go of, that we feel is a disgrace, that we have outgrown. Now that's a much lighter way to say it. Right around the time that Mercury goes retrograde. Mercury rules the logical mind, and we can make a sudden opinion that I'm done with that. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm signing the papers. Goodbye. So sad. Sorry for you. Peace off. There's a lot in that vibration. And our mental energy going into Mercury turning retrograde. The weekend before, because Mercury turns retrograde on a Monday. So all the weekend before, the moon's going through Virgo, the moon's going through Mercury's sign, and our head is spinning and we can't get anything straight. And we feel like we have to get something put into order so a change can occur. But not everybody's going to be putting something in order. Not everybody's going to be organizing the house so that way somebody else can take something in. Not everybody's going to be looking for paperwork to go trade in their car, just going off of another kind of example that would be mercurial. There is an adjustment in there. And literally over the course of a few days, going into the start of this Mercury retrograde, an opinion can change. Now, do we immediately announce that opinion to everybody? Not necessarily. And I feel like more people can make that type of announcement whenever it comes to the days following. Why do I say that? Bumping this by day now. Right after Mercury turns retrograde, between the end of November 26th. So for some people, this will be late on the 26th. For other people, this is going to be in the wee early morning hours on November 27th. But I'm going to put this on the 26th because that's close enough. Mars is going to go through its trine with the sun. Now, trines are triangles. Our passions, our desires. This is a fire trine. Not only will the sun go through a trine with Mars, but these two will be in a trine to the North Node. And I'm going to say something here one time, but I will put more emphasis on this when I do the Mars retrograde video, and that's not coming out until the first week of December. And that is gains, a desire to get gains, to have power, a notice and awareness in a transition of power. The sun is now an immutable sign. It's an abridging sign of taking responsibility off of one person based off of their actions and starting to move it towards another person. And when Mars goes through that trine with the sun, again, exact for some people late on the 26th, for other people on the 27th, the human effect is we can feel it. The 25th, the 26th, the 27th, 28th. Let's be clear about that. But whatever that dynamic is, it's a very powerful thing. But for Mars, it's a very polarizing thing. Because after the trine between the sun and Mars is done, Mars is basically going to stop moving. He's not going to go much further. He will not go more than another like half a degree, and then he's going to turn retrograde. So for a lot of people, the change of opinion, the change in the documentation, the change of responsibilities, and the change of authority figures, whenever with Mars, there will be some people being Mars in this situation that they are going to feel like they are getting left in the dust, that they are being left behind. Certain people, certain places, certain situations are being left behind. For some people, that's a good thing. For other people, not so much. Now, it's going to keep this going, and then I'll have some additional notes on Mars here in just a minute. Okay. On December 1st, so bumping this just a few more days, December 1st, here we go. What did I do? Oh, I got to bump this by hour. Sorry. Right after midnight on December 1st, we get our new moon in Sagittarius. Now, again, this is a new moon being hosted by Jupiter. Jupiter is being hosted by Mercury. Mercury is being hosted by Jupiter. There is a mutual reception here. There is something about what has flipped in the Mercury retrograde that leads to a new necessary beginning, a new shift in the dynamic, a new shift in plans. And for some people, this will have a wave of expect the unexpected. Why do I say that? Because in the days around this new moon, Venus will go through her trine with Uranus. Now, this is actually exact on the 2nd, but it's still so close that I can't ignore it. Expect the unexpected, having something very, very exciting, having something that's very, very boastful, having something that is being received well by others, even though it wasn't necessarily a part of the plan. I'm glad he ain't my boss anymore. He sucked anyways. This didn't work. I don't like it. Goodbye. It doesn't always have to be bad. But for, again, some people, they're the ones getting left in the dust. And that's going to lead to disruptions in that area because some people do not handle breakups well. Remember that going through the first 2 weeks of December. Some people don't handle breakups well. They do shit to show their ass. And be aware of that as we get into December. Some people not handling a breakup well, air quotations on breakup, a friendship breakup, getting bought out of the company, going through an actual breakup, whatever it is, they're not going to handle it well. Okay. Oh, again, it's on December 2nd that we get our exact trine between Venus and Uranus. I'm not going to get too caught on to that one. And now we're going to get to, it's on the 2nd. There we go. Put that more into flavor. And then we're going to get to December 4th. And we have 3 things happening on December 4th. We get the 2nd opposition between Mercury and Jupiter. And I am going to again remind everybody, Jupiter at this point is in the same area of the sky where he was in August, between the 14th and the 20th, the thing that I was talking about in the intro. There are things from the summertime that are going to play into part of this situation, part of what's going on, part of this dynamic, part of this rollout, part of this power change. Be aware of that. Mercury hits that 2nd opposition to Jupiter. And again, the first one was just a few weeks before on November 18th. The sun will go through its exact square with Saturn. So you can see that here too. It's not exact at that moment. It's actually happening a few hours later. But considering the Mercury-Jupiter opposition, considering what will happen at the end of December, there can be things that are going on that have to do with like the money, Mercury opposite Jupiter, going off of the financial sense, the planning, Mercury opposite Jupiter, the condition, especially if we're having intestinal issues here, the condition, Mercury opposite Jupiter, that requires someone else to take a look. We need another opinion when the sun hits that square to Saturn. Or we get told something that is very weighted and very heavy, that pushes something. Again, regarding responsibility, it is Saturn pushing something in regards to who's going to be in charge of what, pushing somebody into taking responsibility for something, pushing someone to deal with something tied to our elders. And again, intestinal health, you have people in your family that have already been having issues before Mercury goes retrograde. Get them in front of the doctor before it turns into something that we don't plan for. And I feel really sorry for my people that work in the medical field. It's going to be a very interesting Mercury retrograde. Okay, moving that along. So, Sun square Saturn, Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, and then Venus at the same time will go through a sextile with Neptune. given Venus's energy with Saturn right there, it just seems like it's making us aware of what's going to become a theme, or what's something that's going to have to be more announced and pronounced in the days ahead. And again, whatever's about to get announced, pronounced in the days ahead, there's going to have a ripple effect. So that's December 4th. We're going to bump this now to December 5th. I'm not even joking. This is going to be an intense few days. December 5th. We get the Mercury Cazimi. That's what we get. Somewhere in here. Bumping this in the evening time, about 8:15 p.m. So bump that to 8:30. Voila, Mercury Cazimi. Something comes to light, something comes into focus, something that is getting announced, debuted. But this is a Mercury Cazimi opposite Jupiter. Are they in exact opposition? No, but we just had the exact Mercury Jupiter opposition. And something could have been said in that Mercury Jupiter, something could have been acknowledged. Happy accidents. I'm going off of the intestinal health for just a minute. If we have something that's going on in our stomach, it's like we get told when the sun hits the square to Saturn, yeah, the only way I'm going to be able to fix it is if we do a emergency surgery, or if we go in and do this scan, or we have to do something, some kind of test, something like that. And that has a snap effect that we're not expecting. Be very aware of the energy around the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, because these are going to be very intense days. Very intense. Now, let's get to the 6th. Bumping this a day. We got two things that happen. One, at 5:34 p.m. Central Standard Time, that is when Mars turns retrograde. At 8 p.m., roughly, we have our second square exact now between Mercury and Saturn. Now, this is going to be different than the first Mercury-Saturn square. In the first one, Saturn was stationing to end his retrograde. Mercury was direct, full steam ahead. I got stuff to do. I'm trying this. I'm doing this. Talking to the boss, talking to the elder, talking to mom, talking to dad, talking to whoever is going to be responsible for what, delegating some responsibilities. Now we get into a vibration and Saturn hits that second square with Mercury, but Mercury is retrograde. And I'm again going to say what I said before. There's going to be some people that they're going through the breakup, they're going through disruption, they're going through changes, and they're not going to handle it well. This is a day of miscommunication. And this miscommunication can have a huge ripple effect. This is a day of accidents, and I'm not saying happy accidents now, that have a turnaround and a ripple effect, because in that Mercury Saturn square number 2, that is the day that Mars turns retrograde. And again, something from this timeline can be tied back to the themes, the people, the topics, the situations of whatever was going on in August. Saying it again, somebody's going to have the nerve to be surprised. Saying it again. They're tied together somehow. Think back to what was going on in August. What got delayed in August? Where was our focus in August? What were we waiting for in August? What were we doing in August? Who were we arguing with in August? Who were we holding accountable in August? Because that Mars-Jupiter conjunction was in a square to good old daddy Saturn right there. And Saturn again is having an effect and playing into whatever's going on right here. The dates are connected. The situations are connected. The themes are connected. Go back and look. Go back and look. What did we agree to? Who were we talking to? What were we dealing with? For us to move on, Saturn direct, we got to deal with something from the past. Mercury in the square, but retrograde trying to go in another direction. Ripple effects. Now, the thing about the idea of the people not handling breakups well, they're not handling the fallout of the company being bought out, and now positions are going to have to be like redone and restructured. Some people are not going to like the deal that they get, and they don't have a choice. And this kind of speaks to people learning the company got bought, the new owners are coming in, but there's no need for 27 bosses. We need to narrow those down. And some people, as soon as the purchase happens, they're out. I'm not sticking around. And they make some very easy decisions for some people, but it leaves other people scrambling. The intensity will be so raw and so real. But not only that, there's going to be the elements that have to do with people that have been abusing power, people that have had their abuse of power revealed. And we be talking about past communications and past situations that are now leading and affecting this moment right here. And some of the things that have happened since the Mars Pluto opposition at the beginning of the month, right when Mercury went into Sag, a lot of the decisions, a lot of the communication, a lot of things that's happened since the beginning of November are hitting a peak in the vibration come December 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th. And I haven't even got into the 7th yet. Let's get into that. Let's go. Let's keep going. It's so fun. We're doing some fun stuff. Moving along. Okay. We're going to get into the 7th, and now we have multiple things going on right after midnight. So the very first thing that happens on December 7th, Venus goes into Aquarius. By the morning time around 8 a.m., Venus is going to make her conjunction to Pluto, and I have an extra layer that rounds to that. One of the things I keep saying is some of the stuff from the beginning of the year plays into this also. This is not the first time that Venus and Pluto have made a 0-degree conjunction in Aquarius. In fact, it happened February 16th, earlier this year. And I even did a podcast earlier this year talking about how the timeline of February was also going to impact the start of the Mars retrograde. But I'm not trying to do too deep in Mars retrograde here. He's going to get his own little show here in a little while. A couple weeks. Give me some time. Moving along. Here's that energy. Here's that vibration. Here is something that is going to have a massive level of change, a massive level of benefit. This is a transformational type of energy, and it has so much support because this is also when the sun hits the opposition to Jupiter. Same day, right here. Sun opposite Jupiter. You can see that going on right here. Venus enters Aquarius, the sun hits the opposition Jupiter, Venus has the conjunction to Pluto, and also December 7th, Neptune turns direct. The veil, the lies, the shroud, the things that we have not been seeing clearly falls away. Clarity, so much clarity, so much understanding, so much of a dynamic shifting. There's positives and negatives to everything, but some people will have a final lie, a final understanding, or a final number that comes through that blows everything up. And again, wherever we're at in our own personal karma makes a very big difference as to how this vibration is going to go. All right. Moving this along. After the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, when it comes to major transits, we don't have much more. We really don't. What we actually have is the energy around Mercury starts to slow down. On December 12th, we get an opposition that's going to happen between Venus and Mars. Now, it's exact on the 12th. I'm showing you the 11th because that's putting them both at 5 degrees. This actually goes exact around 5 a.m. on the 12th. So for some people, it's going to be the 11th, other people, the 12th. The human effect is we're going to feel it on both days. And Venus in this area of Aquarius being in mutual reception with Uranus, because that's what happens whenever Venus goes with Uranus's signs right now, while Uranus is in Taurus, is every time Venus goes into Aquarius, they enter mutual reception. It's because I understand what happened back then. I understand what went down back then, that now I'm able to address this. I'm able to address you very, very differently. I see you, Venus opposite Mars retrograde, very, very differently. I know what you've done. I know how you've behaved. You don't know crap. Mars is not going to handle the breakups well. I'm calling them breakups very loosely. It can be a multitude of things. But this is a very intense vibration, a very intense scenario. And some people will do well and feel supported in their understanding. Other people are going to act and react in a very negative fashion. Now, as we continue through the next few days, Mercury is starting to station. And what's interesting to me is Mercury retrogrades trying to station is Mercury starts to re-enter a trine with Mars. And for a lot of people, what will start to unfold December 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, going into the 15th, is we're trying to get something handled. We're trying to get something turned around. We're trying to find a solution. We're trying to find a happy middle ground. And by the time we get to Mercury turning direct, which that's going to happen on the 15th, it's like, okay, I'm working on this. I'm working on this. I'm going to make this happen. I've got this for you. I'm trying to make you happy. But then as Mercury stations direct, it never hits the exact trine with Mars. Mars isn't going to be happy. Mars isn't going to agree. Mars is going to go in a different direction. I trusted you to do this. You didn't do what you say you were going to do. Now I have to go back here. Now I have to go somewhere else. Now I got to move in with my mom. Like, think of it that way. It's like trying to find a solution, trying to work some things out, but we can't get anything approved. We can't make anything happen. No matter how hard we try, it's just not jiving. And some people, again, are not going to handle the breakups well. I'm just going to keep making the joke of the breakup for it's going to have different courses for everybody. Oh, again, December 15th, Mercury turns direct. It's in the trine with Mars, but it never hits another exact trine. There is something that we tried to make happen, and no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't make it happen. We couldn't make it jive. We tried. Somebody's going to walk away. Somebody's going to no longer agree. Somebody's going to want to go stick their head in the sand. Somebody is going to want to go out and blast you on everything. Miscommunication, misinformation. They lied to me. They never made it right. No, we tried the whole time. No, you didn't. You lied. You were just stringing me along. Vibration. Okay. Okay. Now, the other thing that is happening on December 15th is this is also the full moon in Gemini, but that actually happens. I'm going to bump this backwards a day on the 14th, but get this by hour. Moving it along right there. Oh, roughly around 3 a.m., we get our full moon in Gemini. We are getting a full moon in Mercury sign. So we're really peaking on a mercurial energy of I'm trying to make this happen. I'm trying to get something going, but you aren't being satisfied with anybody. You know what? Screw it. I'm not going to try anymore. You weren't trying to begin with. This can be the other way this kind of goes. And Mercury's like, I'm done. Go do it. Go figure it out. I got other stuff to do. I got other stuff to focus on. I got other stuff that I'm working on. And we hit this peak energy. This is the day Mercury turns direct with this full moon in Mercury sign, this full moon in Gemini. After this full moon, after Mercury turns direct, we're taking a few days to try to wrap our head around a few things. There's going to be some where we have lots of confusion in some ways, or we just can't get our vibe together and we can't get things understood. And what will start to happen is after the full moon and after Mercury turns direct, we start to build up to the sun's square to Neptune. And you can see that right here, sun square Neptune. Now, when we have sun in the higher authorities squaring Neptune, because that's what we have right now, it is the sun pushing something forward. It is the sun making people aware of the lies, the fraud, the deception. It is the sun that is trying to inspire sun square Neptune, giving direction, giving hope, giving guidance, giving clarity. But some things are not going to move fast. And if we do have the things tied to the lies, the fraud, and the deception, considering when the sun goes through that square to Neptune, we also get this conjunction with the moon and Mars. Some of the truths that come to light, some of the vibration that comes to light, some of the information that comes to light. Mars is not going to like you exposing his actions, his behavior. We're going to see some fit throwing from people. Okay. That's December 18th. On December 19th, just bumping this another day, what we get is Venus's trine to Jupiter. Now, this happens later in the evening, right around 8:10 p.m. But again, we have something about understanding, something about our desires, things that can go around husbands, the doctor, the guru, the teacher, expressions of desire, expressions of our hope. Talking about some of the things from the past, because Jupiter is retrograde. Jupiter and Mercury are still in the mutual reception, and the sun is still in that square to Neptune. There can be a lot of a nostalgic element here, past the one person that wants to act out of character, that wants to do things that he doesn't need to be doing. Past that vibration, we have the other side of this, like we can be connecting to people from the past and just, I'm apologizing. I made this decision because so-and-so told me. I didn't realize they were lying to me. I tried to tell you the truth. I understand you tried to tell me the truth, but I couldn't do anything then. I'm letting you know now. There can be reception there. And again, an understanding of the truth, the lie, what has gone on based off the other person, and mending some bridges, building over troubled water type of thing. Okay. Oh, on December 21st, the sun is going to go into Capricorn. It is the start of Capricorn season. So we got that here. Here's the sun at 0 degrees. Oh, so we have the sun at 0 degrees. We have Pluto at 0 degrees. We have Mars moving back towards 0 degrees. We get a lot of things that are like at the start of something, but there's something productive that needs to start. There's a shift in the plan, a shift in the communication, a shift in the focus, a shift in logistics, a shift in the travel. Because there are going to be a lot of things tied to travel. Oh, and now we're going to get to the holidays. Let's get to December 24th. On December 24th, we get our exact second square between Saturn and Jupiter. So that happens just a couple more hours after this. That's pretty close. Anyways, you can see this right here, December 24th, 9:30 a.m. Here's Saturn, 14 degrees. Here's Jupiter at 14 degrees, 3 minutes. It actually goes exact around 3 p.m. But I think this is very interesting whenever it comes to this is happening on a holiday, because with Jupiter having moved full steam ahead, feeling like he had all these bright ideas and all this situation, we have this energy of like Jupiter's coming back to the elder. And I kind of have an impression that based off of either the condition of an elder, condition of who's been having to take responsibility for what's going on, there's going to be a lot of focus on what's going to be best with and around our elders right around this time frame. Now, can you be working? Can you be dealing with bosses and stuff like that? Absolutely. But I feel like there's a little bit of a tangible break from some of the crazy whenever it comes to this Christmas energy. And yes, Mars is still retrograde, But I'm not locked in on Mars retrograde at this moment. What I'm more focused on is the second square between Jupiter and Saturn. Now, the last time we had a Jupiter Saturn square, Mars was involved. And again, August 14th to August 20th, that was the week that was exact. We had Mars conjunct Jupiter, Saturn square Mars, then Saturn square Jupiter, and they were all just within a few days of each other. And there was other things going on too. Again, that speak back to that middle of August timeframe, which was also a Mercury retrograde. Mercury is now post retrograde. We're in the post shadow phase, but there's still a connection that takes us back to that August timeframe. And one person that took actions in one direction is now going to have to come back around and return something, return to someone, doctor, guru, teacher, going to the authority figures, going towards the elders, talking about what responsibilities have changed, who's in charge of what. And again, since the sun is now in Saturn's sign, it's actually in Capricorn, a lot of the focus is around elders, new traditions. Some people are going to be bringing family members back into the fold. Some people are going to be coming back to a family event for the first time in a long time, but they're coming based off of they need help, or they need to feel support, or they need to feel love after so much disruption has occurred. There's some kind of reuniting vibration that really comes through here. And I like that for Christmas, regardless of Mars retrograde, putting all the other stuff in here. I like that. And it's like by coming back to the elder, by coming back to certain people, by reigniting a tradition, by putting more focus on that responsibility and that elder, it allows for a little bit of bridging over troubled waters. I think that's going to be a big portion of the energy that starts to vibrate after Mercury turns direct. Okay. Oh, the last time Saturn was square was August 19th. The next time, because we get a series of 3, and whatever starts to unfold right around Christmas, Merry Christmas, everybody, will also have an impact on the third and final square between Saturn and Jupiter. And that's not even going to be in these signs. That's going to be in a different sign. That's going to be on June 15th of 2025. Moving along. On December 26th, because we got to do all this stuff around the holidays, right? We have the third opposition between Mercury and Jupiter, but we will also on the 27th, and I'm going to put these kind of together, is not only will we have Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, but we will have Mercury's square to Saturn. So again, what I say next is not just about the 26th. It is the 26th and the 27th. So I'm going to bump this to like that midnight time frame of the 27th. And now I'm going to focus on my face. There you go. Where my face? I have said repeatedly that whatever we're starting to unfold, whatever we're working on, whatever we're communicating, whatever we're revamping, wherever our confidence is, that if we overpromise and underdeliver in those beginning parts of November, if you did that type of vibration, that by the time we got to the end of the year, which by the way, this is the end of the year, this is the week of Christmas that we're talking about. When Mercury goes back into that opposition to Jupiter, it also includes that square to Saturn. So some people are going to have to come back around going, well, I need help too. I tried to make something work. I tried to make something happen. I tried to do the thing. I tried. But it didn't work. I've got another plan, but I need help. I need support. I need your input. And remember, Mercury and Jupiter, they're in mutual reception. It is going to be Capricorn season. The sun will be in Saturn sign. So the focus is about roles and responsibility. Not only that, though, Jupiter is hosting Saturn. So much of the dominance in the energy has to do with that axis of whatever Gemini and Sagittarius rule for you. And at the closing of this, I'll actually do kind of a quick little breakdown of this by sign for people. But there's so much in this axis of adjustments and change and bridging into something different, something that's going to be more hopeful, something that will not take off immediately, but that will have layers and rounds to taking off. The course correction has many variables, many obstacles on the course. And by the time we get to the end of December and that first full week of January, it's like we're coming to the end of one obstacle course and starting to transition our focus into the next one that we're going to pick, the next one that we're going to go down. Some people, it's an inherited course. You got no choice. You went balls to the wall, you're going to keep going balls to the wall. For other people, you went balls to the wall, you didn't place well, so automatically, like, you went down a level and now you're going to intermediate. Or vice versa. You did so well in intermediate, you're going to balls to the wall. Some people are going to want an easy thing. You're just going to want to become reclusive. But there's something about the last week of December going into the first full week of January that feels like picking the next obstacle. And it really comes through in this vibration, in this T-square that's going on between Jupiter, Mercury, and Saturn. This can be heavy for some people, and I'm not going to sugarcoat that, and I'm not going to pretend that it can't be heavy. It can be heavy for some people, but it's not going to be heavy for everybody. And some people just, they need the support. They need somebody that can help them with that transition and plan, that transition and focus, and that level of delegation. There is a need for support. Okay. Mercury's opposition to Jupiter, again, is the most exact on December 26th. Mercury square to Saturn is the most exact on December 27th. I'm putting them together by talking about them all in one flow because I feel like these few days, the 24th, the 25th, 26th, 27th, they're all coordinated, they're all correlated, they're all speaking to one another. And then we get to the 28th. So I'm just going to bump this by day. Venus is going to go through her exact square with Uranus. Squares are exactly that. They're 90-degree angles. But this is a square that has mutual reception. Venus is in Uranus's sign. Uranus is in Venus's sign. Hey, bro, I can talk. I understand. I know where you've been. I know how you're feeling. I've been in your situation. I've been in your shoes. This is what we can do. This is how we can turn it around. This is how we can make an adjustment. This is how you can regain some of your independence. This is how we can start picking up on some things from before. This is how we can go in a different direction. This is how we can move from here. The last time Uranus was at this area of the sky, it was back in the summertime, the summer of 2024. So there can be some things that, again, speak back to what was going on before, but also folding in the time of how we're picking back up on other things and how we're going to put some other things back into motion. Oh, on December 30th, so I'm just going to bump this 2 more days, we get our new moon in Capricorn. That's actually happening way later. So I'm bumping this by hours, so it's a little bit closer. Voila. Okay. Goes the most exact at 4:26 p.m. I've got it at 3:30. You can see it. Here's the moon. Here's the sun. New moon in Capricorn. Saturn is in an area of the sky where he has already been. The last time he was at this 14-degree mark was actually during the first eclipse season that happened in 2024. So there's so much of the timeline that it's like we're folding things together. We've got stuff from the springtime and from the summertime and throughout the winter. And it's like, well, I made changes here and that led to this. This led to meeting these people. These people didn't work well. But because I met this person, and this person was awesome. And now it's like bringing in the right people, the right situations into the fold. And the entire time, Mars has been retrograde, course correction. Now we're going to start to bump into January. And the one thing that has been very dominant this entire time of the last 2 weeks of December that start to take us into January is Mars re-entering the opposition to Pluto. We are going to feel disruption. We are going to have a change in pace. There is going to be an adjustment with people who are in positions of power, and the opinions of other people that are being impacted by that are also going to be very, very dominant. That will be a big part of that last part of December and that first part of January as we go to the next obstacle, that next part of the obstacle course. Okay. On January 2nd, we get Venus going into Pisces. That's going to happen a little bit later in the day. There we go. Got this January 2nd around 10:30. Here's Venus in Pisces. What time did it go in? Sorry, 9:25 p.m. So it's like an hour afterwards. And during Venus's entry into Pisces, we also start to reignite that Mars-Pluto opposition. So again, so much of what we've been working on, so much of the changes that have happened, so much of the impact are going to correlate and tie back to things that have already happened, bringing more and more to the forefront, testing more and more of the changes that we have done since the beginning of the year, putting people into places, putting pressure on people to see if they're going to be able to withstand the changes and adjustments that have happened. And that speaks through right here. Now, when Venus goes into Pisces, there's going to be a lot of need for emotional healing, a lot of need for it, spiritual healing. Now, Venus is exalted in Pisces. She does super well right here. So there's going to be some people that feels like every time we take a step forward into something, it's like we're fixing something from the past. It makes us more and more aware of like what was being disrupted before. And that's going to be a good thing. Now, Venus enters Pisces on the 2nd, around 9:25 p.m. And then the next day, and there's a reason I keep putting the emphasis on Mercury and Pluto, so we're just going to go to the next day. On January 3rd, right here, January 3rd, after that Mars-Pluto opposition, actually, I'm going to take that back and then just bump this by hour. It's right after the Mars-Pluto opposition goes exact. It's right when this is happening. Mercury leaves shadow. So putting that back together from the start of this to the end of this. When Mercury entered shadow on November 7th, we had just wrapped up the exact first Mars-Pluto opposition. And whatever happened in the Mars-Pluto opposition directly impacted Mercury going into shadow. When Mercury leaves shadow, we are back in the Mars-Pluto opposition. The transfer of power, the shift in awareness, the shift in society, the shift in people, the shifts in power, all very, very necessary structural changes, revising, revamping, repurposing, renegotiating, redoing so much. And by the time we get to the first part of the new year, we are done with the first obstacle course, and we're going to go into the next one. And right around the time that Mercury will leave Sagittarius will also be the time when Mars goes back into Cancer. Mars in Leo with Mercury and Sag, they are correspondent to one another. They speak to one another. There will be a lot of action and reaction, shifts in power, shifts in focus, shifts in ego, shifts in who is in charge of certain things. Who will be responsible for what? Who will be caring for what? Who will be respected for what they are known to do, for what they have been doing, for what they see? That is all in this vibration. And when Mars comes back and hits that second opposition to Pluto, Pluto is in such an empowered place that some people are going to try to come back and be like, I made a mistake. Yeah, you did. What are you going to do about it? Not nothing. Not nothing. There's nothing you can do. The damage is done. You've misbehaved. You didn't do well. And they're going to really push the other side of certain people into emotional distress. And that speaks volumes to what's going to happen when Mars goes back into Cancer. That's going to happen after the shadow period is over. That is going to happen after Mercury finally leaves Sagittarius. There's so much busyness, so much activity, so much in the vibration, so much that's going to shift that whenever we get to January, when Mercury goes into Capricorn, when we have far more awareness as to like who's responsible for what based off of all of the changes that have been necessary to occur, we still have changes that are among this energy. We will not be done with the changes until we get into April and May of next year. This is just going to be the first round. Every vibration is different, every transit's different, but these dates speak to one another. The situations speak to one another. The issues speak to one another. There are layers, there are volumes, and there's a lot of revising, reshaping, refocusing, redoing things. When Pluto went back into Capricorn and when Pluto went back to the drawing board and had to go deal with the unfinished business, there was a lot of mistakes that were understood. For some people, there was healing of trauma. But for a lot more people, the mistakes around people in charge became a big part of the forefront. A lot of people became aware, and they had to make some very hard emotional decisions during that time. Those decisions are leading to rampant changes within our society, within our home lives, within our businesses. And some people are ready for the change. Again, if you are living in alignment, you pick balls to the wall for the reason. It's because you've been doing what you're supposed to do. And we are ready for that ramp up and adjustment into where we go next, into what we do next. But for other people, you are dealing with the repercussion. And you will feel the frustration of Pluto in Aquarius, that people that have been in positions of power have not done well. And I feel more of this energy over the course of the next few months has to do with businesses and bigger entities, given the Jupiter effect, giving the Pluto and Aquarius effect, giving Saturn in Pisces, so in Jupiter's sign. There's too much of this that speaks to groups and peoples and collective, but we will still have the personal effects too. We will still have personal situations too. But in the bigger scope of things, there's going to be a much more massive shift in society, in people, than there is just on the individual level. So I hope that helps. Okay. Oh no, there was one more thing I was going to do. The axis. For Aries and Libra risings, the axis of the Mercury-Jupiter opposition is in your third and ninth house. This has a lot to do with higher education, lower education, travel, training. Some of it's going to have to do with institutions and faith. Some of it is going to have to do with marketing and branding and finding out a new way to communicate, to excel, and to do things with other people with the Mercury-Jupiter opposition. For the Taurus Scorpio axis, hi guys, it's us and me. This is in the second, eighth house axis. So this has got a lot of financial elements, but adding in the Pluto Mars opposition, not only are we dealing with the financial elements, but we're also dealing with like how it impacts the home life and how it's impacting our career, how the public elements of things are going to go forward, and then what's going to require us to change in our home, in our surroundings, in our family, how it impacts our family. The financial elements are very strong there in negative and positive ways. Some people are going to have big upticks. Other people are going to potentially have huge negative effects where you even need, unemployment aid and stuff like that. So double-edged sword, it's either again positive, negative, or double whammy, or the double positive equals negative, or the double whammy. Some people are going to have the double whammy, and I'm being honest about that. For the Gemini Sagittarius, y'all did it. You were the problem. Jupiter has been in Gemini, of course, since late May. Right at the beginning of November, Mercury goes into Sagittarius. Y'all are making the changes. You guys are supervising the changes. Y'all are dealing with it. Either Gemini is requiring the Sagittarius side to make adjustments based off of what they desire because Mercury's retrograde in Sag, or it's Sagittarius side, your first and seventh house, like you are making absolute changes because of what is necessary in career. Mercury also rules your 10th house. Or because you're wanting to do something differently for a partner. That's a business partner, that can be a friend, that can be a relationship, that can also have to do with your family, because for the mutable axis, Jupiter rules more than one thing and Mercury rules more than one thing. But for you guys in particular, it's like Sagittarius risings, Jupiter is your chart ruler, and it rules that fourth house of home life, and family. Pisces, like that Jupiter rules that 10th house of career for you guys as much as it rules you. Mercury, having the rulership of the other side of how all that's going out, Mercury rules Gemini, Mercury rules Virgo. So much of this is about rampant change in regards to what's best for everybody in the big picture and big scope of things. And with Pluto leaving Capricorn for the Sagittarius risings and the Gemini risings, especially, this is going to allow for certain financial hardships to finally break away, for certain things to get paid out, for certain business contracts and partnerships to finally get handled, and legal matters. A big part of that can also have to do with legal matters for you guys, contractual obligations, lawsuits, insurance payouts, whatever that stuff can be. But there's a big impact there. And for a lot of you, there will be very public elements to that. Okay. For the Cancer and Capricorn risings, I have actually talked about this in recent new moon and full moon videos. When Mercury ruling the sixth house of health for Capricorn risings, with Jupiter ruling the sixth house of health for Cancer risings, the health vibration around you guys, what's best for you and your health, listening to your gut, doing the things that are going to protect that digestive tract, paying attention to your lungs. Health is such a big element for you guys, but also work. There's going to be a lot of things tied to work. The thing about the sixth house is that it is a place that has to do with pets, but also how to be of service, how to actually take care of not just yourself, but other people. And I would expect major shifts in routine for you guys. Whenever it comes to the 12th house element of that, it's also letting go of an old cycle, letting go of people that that no longer serve you, that are not going to be continuing for you. And considering, especially for the Capricorn side, Pluto leaving Capricorn, there's a financial element that's going to be adjusting for you guys as well. Cancer risings, Pluto's going into your 8th house. Capricorn risings, Pluto's going into your 2nd house. Fears as to either partnership or the weight of pressure that has been on yourself for the Cap risings, Cancer risings, it's more, the dynamic of partnership. It's like not doing some things the same way anymore, and now allowing that shift of power to start focusing on better ways of taking care of ourselves and making money. Be aware of that. Okay. For the Leo Aquarius axis, the Mercury Jupiter opposition is happening in the 5th house and 11th house. And I have said one part of this, especially to Leo risings, forever now. This timeline is understanding the differences between friends and lovers. Now, some of you are going to be having to deal with a lot having to do with your children, but you're also going to need the assistance, the aid of another side, the help of another side because of whatever is necessary around the kids. Or it is because of the kids that all of this other side needs to start making adjustments and changes. We have so much that has to do with that 5th house, but not everybody has children. And that's why I'm saying the extra layer to that is understanding the difference between friends and lovers. Because it's very easy to be like, well, I vibe with this person so much. We like all the same things. And we start to become emotionally attached to someone that should never be more than a friend. Now, I've been saying that to Leo risings for a very, very long time, like quite literally since Jupiter has went into Gemini. And some of y'all have already had to deal with the hardships of not listening to that. But it's going to be amplified with the Mercury retrograde if we're dealing with relationship things. But in a lot of other ways, you guys are going to be dealing with elements that kind of go into politics and, again, stuff around kids. Whatever is going to be best for the kids, or having situations where your kids are just acting out of context or acting very, very differently. And you have to deal with not only their friends, but like their friends' parents. So be aware of that. Oh, for the Virgo and Pisces axis, like you guys should probably also go rewind it a few minutes to where I was talking about Gemini and Sag, because y'all are the problems too. Like we're talking about Mercury opposite Jupiter and mutual reception. So much of this comes down to, adjustments in relationships. For many of you, while Mars is turning retrograde in the 12th Virgo rising specifically now, while Mars is turning retrograde in Leo, like you guys are going to go into elements that can be very depressing, and it can very much test like things that you are not expecting to come to the surface. For Pisces risings, whenever Mars goes retrograde in the middle of this, there could be something tied to health, your health or someone else's health, that starts to negatively impact routine, that starts to impact the kids, impact the household, a lot of things that can have to do with mothers and fathers. And when it comes to the end of the year, so that timeline between December 24th and December 27th, whenever we get the Jupiter square to Saturn and Mercury in the mix, there's going to be a lot of difficult conversation as to what's going to be best for the family, what's going to be best in career, what's going to be best in direction, and whether some relationships are going to continue, especially with Virgo risings. Many of you are going to have some very big difficulties as to what kind of relationships will continue moving forward. And for a lot of you, there's going to be the risk of the D word, just to be clear. Divorce, in case there was a question. Okay. I think I'm done ranting about everything now. We've covered the axis, we've covered the dates, we've covered the intro, we've covered all the changes. There's a lot of things coming up the pipeline. All of my contact information is listed in the description of every single episode. If you want to reach out to me, you can touch base with me through email, social media. There's going to be some other ways to be able to start communicating with me in the future. They're just not ready to roll out quite yet, but they're coming. They're coming. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for all the support. I'll talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.